This is Getting Past Subtitles. My name is Jean-Pierre.
And I'm DK Lee.
And welcome to the exclusive land.
Yes.
Welcome to no man's land.
My car needs driving.
Your 900 turbo, Saab turbo.
Uh-huh.
Your Saab 900 turbo.
Yeah. That's a nice car.
It's a pretty nice car.
Yeah.
It looks fun to drive. I'm not going to lie.
I like more vintage type cars
Mm.
and quiet ones. I don't think that one's actually quite quiet.
No.
It might be, but
Bro,
I like,
you didn't hear the rattles through the
yeah,
screen?
it's not. But I like quiet cars. That's why I love when my dad used to have a Lincoln Town Car. It was hella quiet and it was hella comfortable because it was so wide. Like there's so much space inside. Yeah, nice cars.
So you like electric cars, huh?
I've actually never ridden.
Bro, electric cars are like quiet.
Is it?
Quiet. Like
Okay, maybe you gotta get a
quiet.
Tesla.
Quiet. I've driven one. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I don't like loud cars. I don't know why people like loud cars.
Bro, you
So
feel
obnoxious.
the power, Lee.
Tesla,
Feel the
you can
power.
go from 0 to 60 real fast, right?
Yeah, whatever. But it's the thrill.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Thrill. But the other thrill, the loud thrill. More power, baby. Yeah, so we are here talking about Cars. And
Cars the movie. I love
Cars
that.
the movie. Cars 3.
You thought it was Drive My Car.
You thought it was Drive My Car, but in reality, it's about the real car movies.
Yes.
What did he say? Like, not Chapow, but ka-chang. Something like that. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. I guess we are talking about Drive My Car.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. It's that one, you may or may not have seen it. You know, it was like popular, but not really popular. It was popular amongst the people who cared, I guess.
It won an award from something somewhere.
An award. It didn't win the award, but it won an award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, that award ceremony kind of went to crap, so we won't mention what happened.
Which is why, like, it's kind of unfortunate, like, in even just like talking about this in like the placement of the movie, like it's a big deal, but also just so underplayed.
Well, I mean,
Like,
it got buried in.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say like this Academy Awards in particular, but really like for the past 2 years, it's been like it's just been like whatever. Like it really is kind of falling off.
I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really watch the Academy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
Never really cared for it, but I've heard that this movie was praised by Bong Joon-ho, and I just thought, oh, if he liked it, then it must. No,
Is that like your North Star?
Nah.
No,
But I think it's important to kind of like, you know, if somebody endorses something and, you know,
Yeah.
it kind of piqued my interest in it. And that's kind of why I suggested we do this movie for our exclusive podcast. And watching it, I think that, I mean, Bong Joon-ho has pretty good taste, I think.
You said, I mean,
You know,
kinda, sorta,
maybe,
ish.
but you know.
Yeah, I think like the buzz was around that it was kind of surprising, or a little surprising, that a lot of people actually saw this movie. I think more people saw this movie than expected, and it just kind of like it's a pretty great movie. But it was kind of shocking to like for how much buzz it got in a way. I don't know if like in the same way like Parasite, like a little different. Like Parasite had a lot of buzz, but like I mean Parasite was
This did not
definitely wider.
have nowhere near the amount of like buzz that Parasite won. Didn't it win Best Picture?
It did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was on a completely different level.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, there was a lot of buzz for this movie, saying that it was a really good movie. But it's a very different movie as well, right?
Yeah.
It's a
100%.
completely different type of movie. But it was very refreshing, I think, in one way or another. So I think,
I mean, very within like the Oscar vein.
yeah,
Very Oscar worthy.
kind of Oscar baity.
Yeah, for sure. So it kind of like it made pretty much sense there. But yeah, so Drive My Car, directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi, released last year. it world premiered in Cannes, actually, and it was competed for the Palme d'Or, the top dog. Didn't win it, though. I think it won Best Screenplay in Cannes.
Best Screenplay Award, yeah.
And so then later on, it got nominated for the Academy Awards. Like I said, like lots of buzz going around, kind of surprisingly. Like I said, like this Academy Awards kind of like underplayed, but there is some good representation. It's kind of a big deal because it got nominated for 4 categories: Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best International Film, and Best Picture. And it's the first Japanese film to be nominated for Best Picture. So I mean, big deal, but kind of unfortunate in the setting. It only won Best International Film, which is kind of a gimme. But yeah, did pretty good. A little bit about Hamaguchi personally. So I was kind of familiar with his name. I've actually only tried watching one of his movies, which was Happy Hour, which is a 6-hour long movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's long. I didn't survive. I think I made it an hour, and I was like, "This movie's slow, yo. That movie is a slow burn." If you think this movie's long,
yeah.
Woo. But Hamaguchi, he started filming while he was in university. He went to film school. He continued to get his master's. His thesis was called Passion, which came out in 2008. Kind of a little bit of a buzz. After that, he did a 3-part documentary about the 2011 Tohoku earthquake. And then he really got his breakout, though, after that with Happy Hour. And after that, he made Asako 1 and 2. And then, which are not sequels, like that's the actual title, Asako 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then he really gained buzz like around with this movie, but he actually released another movie last year, which was called Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. So he did 2 movies in 2021, which is pretty interesting. I think Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy came out of a workshop that he did, I want to say, or maybe I'm confusing with Happy Hour. I'm not sure, but yeah. So I definitely want to see Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. I hear that one was pretty good, but this one definitely shot up to be the one. And he's actually in pre-production to do another film, which I forgot the name, but he's got another one on the way. So there's that. This movie in particular, though, Drive My Car, is actually an adaptation from a short story written by Haruki Murakami, a pretty prominent Japanese writer. The short story is the same name, and it comes out of a collection of short stories called Men Without Women, which came out in 2014. And along with this book, he obviously expanded on it for a film, but he also drew some inspirations from like a couple of the other stories from that collection as well. So yeah, another interesting nugget is this movie was supposed to be in Busan, but COVID.
It is in Busan.
It is in Busan. Yeah, it's true. He's like, I'm gonna get there one way or another. Yeah. But obviously, it was set in Hiroshima. Yeah. I was kind of interesting to see like what the whole buzz was about this movie. I kind of heard a lot about it. Heard that it was really good. Heard that it was 3 hours long, and I was like, oh great, another Hamaguchi film that's like super long. Like is that your shtick or something? So I was kind of curious as to like particularly like people are sticking out for like this long of a movie and it's getting like all this praise. So I'm really interested to see like what it is that's kind of attracting to it. And it's actually really good. I think kind of caught me a little bit by surprise. I think particularly on the topic of screen time, surprisingly went by really fast, 3 hours. Like I didn't really feel it at all.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I agree. I watched it and I think it's a very like low tension movie. Like there's not a lot of like high tension moments in the movie. But I think the way that the story is told and the content of what the story is and the things that are going on, not necessarily through action, but the stories, especially Oto's stories that she like tells really makes the time go by fast. It's interesting. Like you, Oto is the wife of
Kafuku.
Yeah, Kafuku, right? Kafuku, and she's apparently a screenwriter as well. And she tells these stories after she has sex. She starts like telling these stories about basically, she starts writing basically, right? These stories, she starts weaving these stories from her mind. And it's like very interesting. Like it like keeps you on your toes, right?
Sure, yeah.
And there's always that like mystery in that story, and like you're always kind of thinking like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Like I want to know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very big driving point of this movie feeling like not like draggy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all of that stuff compounded with the more external things going on in terms of like his marital relationship with Otto. And then the other mystery of like right before she dies, she's like, oh, I gotta tell you something.
Yeah.
Adds another layer of like, oh, what
Tension,
was that about?
Yeah.
And so like you're constantly like strung to follow these like breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Which kind of help with the overall story's pacing and us not feeling like it's a 3-hour movie.
Yeah. Before I add to that, so like what's off of that though? Like, because all this happens only like 30 minutes into the movie, right? Spoiler podcast, by the way, she dies.
Well, also, the movie doesn't start until 40 minutes in.
Yeah, basically. Like, this is all
the opening
prologue.
credits is just like, hi, we're going to start the movie now.
Yeah. And it's like time skips 2 hours after her death, right? So, like, what is it after that, though, when the movie actually starts?
Right.
That, like, because, like, obviously that's the majority of the screen time. So, like, but even that still kind of, like, tags you along. It's not really draggy. What do you think is about that?
Like, what I'm saying is, like, it's the hope that you will find out what was happening there.
Okay.
That is like pulling people along,
right,
to watch the like more of it, right? It's like okay, we know that she had sex with some other dude. We probably know that it's the actor guy, the what's his name, Takeshi, right? What Taketsuki, and so there's that underlying conflict that we want to see and figure out like how Kafuku is going to deal with that.
Yeah.
And so that's another like point of interest for the audience to be like, okay, so this dude is gonna be in this play with him,
right,
or like working on the play with him as well. So how is that dynamic gonna be?
Right.
And then all of that I think really kind of pulls the audience through the movie pretty well.
Yeah, it's like I was like off my point continuing that like this movie isn't a Hollywood like blockbuster, nothing explosive happens, even when like something you think is supposed to be explosive, like it's underplayed, like nothing, the responses are never explosive, right? Even when like you think the reaction should be. And so that's why I find it kind of interesting, surprising that like my intention is being drawn all the time.
Yeah.
And like I said, like the 30 minutes is like a banger. Like there's always something that's like really kind of grasping you with the wife's tale up until she dies. And then the rest is more of a slow crawl, but I hate using like that term because it's kind of not a slow crawl. Like I said, it is low tension, but it kind of keeps the inches going. And I think like it's like a lot of that is really between Kafuku and Tatsuki, because it's like obviously you think that he is the one that has an affair, probably he did, but like
he did.
Well, he did,
yeah.
but like I said, it's like Kafuku's like constant, like how
he confronts him, right?
Right.
How, like we're interested in how he's going to confront him.
You're like, there's gonna be a snap at any time, but like there never is.
Right.
So you're always like wondering like how is he gonna deal with every interaction that he's in, and like. Every time, like there's a lot of the times that they're talking in private, and you're like what is gonna happen in this conversation, So like a lot of that really kind of keeps you pulling and going. I think more than anything else as well. But it's just like it's just funny. It's just a funny like dichotomy of like of again like none of it is like explosive. Like it's all downplayed quite heavily, but it's just like there's such a quiet tension that is there.
Right. And we haven't even talked about Misaki, right?
Yeah. I think it's
Watari.
Yeah, Watari. Yeah.
What's her?
Misaki. Watari,
Misaki, right? Yeah. So like we haven't even touched on that, and you know the whole ordeal with him and her and the driving aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the cool thing about this movie is that the car seems to be, no pun intended, a vehicle for all of these different things that are kind of happening, and it's that environment, that place where Kafuku is able to reflect, but also kind of the car is also a metaphor for a kind of moving forward, right? And the driver is maybe a metaphor of like relinquishing my own hold on certain things and letting somebody else do that, right? And all of that I think are kind of like symbolic and metaphoric in this movie. But yeah, what are your thoughts about that, like about Misaki and that whole aspect of the movie, the car, the big chunk of the movie, the Saab.
The Saab is cool. It's very red. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was really interesting. Like, I mean, that's a new, like, the metaphor of like the driver. That's a new take for me. I thought it was really interesting that, like, also obviously like his routine is like rehearsing lines, but like it's always a line of like his wife. Like his wife is like constantly a character in the story all the time, even though it's like kind of like you said, the drive is like to move forward, kind of like confront your grief. Even though she's dead, like she's always there, Yeah. And so everything is just kind of like interesting of how that plays into, like, especially with the reveal afterwards, where Kafuku like tells Watari, like, I practice my lines because like that's my routine, but like that's also my wife's voice. Is like, does that make it any more weird? She's like, nah, it's cool, know. So all that was kind of interesting. I mean, like, I'm trying to think, like, Watari specifically, it's just weird because she's an interesting character where, I mean, she's like super monotone, and like we kind of unveil and unpack her and her backstory slowly and like here or there, but it's accompanied with Kafuku as he's like more and more sort of like confronting his grief and like with Takatsuki and like his wife. And so it really like is played together, It's almost like show me yours, I show you mine kind of deal, right? Mm-hmm. Like kind of everything that Kafuku reveals or confronts while Watari's there, she kind of resonates and like gives a piece of herself in the process, right? Yeah. So they're kind of like in a way to like sympathize with him or anything of that nature. But I think I really like the idea of like you said, like everything kind of happens in the car, and just like the space in general is like this kind of like confession room, or like just this safe space to like talk about these things, right? Like I think that was a really cool part that I liked about a lot of it is set in the car, but like the car itself is like symbolic of like just being able to like go through your own thoughts, right? And kind of like just be there kind of like by yourself and like unload sort of emotionally. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you have this character that's his driver, and that he has to like share himself onto her, like
even like unintentionally, right? Even when like Takatsuki comes into the car to talk with Kafuku as well. Yeah, she's not like trying to eavesdrop, but she's literally there. Like, she's listening to all the things that they're talking about. Right. And so like that kind of breaking into that intimate space and just kind of being there, but also her having her own issues, and kind of she is very, in one way, sympathetic to Kafuku's situation and the issues that he has. And they're kind of able to overcome each other's pains through each other, right?
Right.
And
right.
through like, talking about it with each other. And
Yeah.
so that dynamic I think is quite interesting, and also the reference that, she's 23 years old, and if he, if his daughter hadn't died, she would probably be 23 years old as well, and
Right.
that kind of connection there as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool that see like this dynamic between these characters and their relationship is very. I mean, it's pretty different than like any kind of archetype or what you see, because like they're not really codependent to one another. They're very independent from each other.
Yeah.
But like it's kind of a slow burn into them sort of opening up with each other about themselves. And then, like you said, like eventually in like the climax and ending of the movie is that they're able to, like, everything is kind of unloaded, and that they're able to share, like, moving on after the fact,
Yeah.
But it's very interesting to see like them like slowly kind of telling more and more about themselves without being like really dependent to each other,
Mhm.
or even like explicitly like abiding in one another. You know what I mean? Like he's not like unloading on her to like get something off his chest like intentionally per se. It's just kind of like I said, like the car is like such a safe place. Like it just unintentionally like she's experiencing or like learning about these things about him.
And like their mentality is kind of similar as well, like in terms of like they all he says that he likes his car a lot, and
Yeah.
like he takes good care of the car, and she's like, oh, like
It's a really nice car.
it's a really nice car, and I can see that you really like take care of your car,
Right.
and I don't want to like mess up your car as well. And she kind of has that like mutual understanding and almost
Yeah.
respect for the car, but even like for him and how he treats the car, and so she feels obligated to do the same,
Right.
and just that kind of like
Well, they like share the same like I said, like they feel like
they share the same like wavelength almost, right?
Right.
Like they kind of have that,
the car is like the same environment to them.
and almost like the significance of being able to drive a car that they have, right?
Right.
Where like she drove a car since she was very young, and him too, like being in the car and being able to drive and listen to the tape, and that routine is like so integral to who he is as well.
Yeah.
And so like them both having that kind of connection to cars
Mm-hmm.
is what really kind of builds the foundation for them to open up and later eventually like have that kind of conversation.
Right. Yeah, like because for both of them, it's integral for them to kind of like unload in a way, or like for them to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is like be vulnerable, but like usually by themselves. Like like if you're driving a car on your own, it's your own time to like think, or your own time to do your own routine. It's your own time to kind of like just have a space to yourself, and you're allowed to kind of be you, or especially with like trying times, like right, like he's after he finds out that his wife was cheating on him, he goes out and just drives around or whatever. And then the same thing for her, as we learn her story, like she's always driving, and like that was a part of how she was able to navigate her troubled past. And then it was kind of like the only thing that she could do. And then when she moved to not Hokkaido, god dang it, Hiroshima, like she ended up working in like garbage, like it's kind of like integral as like a self part of them. So then when they kind of share it in the same car, it's like you just like that. Then they kind of like give unto each other, because it's like the one place that they can be themselves in a way, right? So it all really kind of worked, even just like characteristically, which is really cool.